Hi there everyone, welcome back to the channel, and welcome to this 2,000 point narrative battle report between the forces of the Ultramarines and the Tyranids. Defending themselves from a horde of Tyranid teeth and claws, we have a battalion of the Ultramarines here in the center of the table. The goal for the Ultramarines in this narrative battle report is going to be simple as simple can be: survive to the end of Battle Round 5. But that will not be as easy as one might think, as there will be endless waves of Tyranids approaching from all around to take out the loyal forces of Guilliman and the Emperor. So, the forces of the Ultramarines are a battalion, starting with 11 CP, while it is an unbound faction of the Tyranids, to balance out the fact that they will be regenerating their numbers every turn. So there will be no CP, no extra warlord traits, no extra relics for the Tyranids, just simply overwhelming numbers. So we'll take a look at the forces of the Space Marines, then get into the start of the game. In the center of the battlefield, we have the leaders of the Ultramarines huddled up to provide tactical support. We have a Primaris captain upgraded to be a chapter master with the Imperium sword and the burning blade. We also have a power sword or force sword wielding Primaris librarian with Null Zone and Psychic Fortress upgraded to be the chief librarian. And we also have a Primaris apothecary upgraded to be chief apothecary with selfless healer to give a little bit of revival to the Ultramarines as well. Surrounding them, we'll just go kind of as the crow flies in the circle, not necessarily by battlefield roll. We have a whirlwind with Stormbolter to provide some heavy firepower, as well as a Storm Speeder with the triple Melta and the missiles on the turret. A 5-man Intercessor squad, providing some cover for a Devastators squad with 4 missile launchers, an Armorium Cherub, and 3 extra Devastators to give some extra wounds, as I did have a little bit of points to spare as the list was being completed. We have a 5-man Infiltrator squad, a 3-man Outrider squad, the Melta and Laz Hunter, I believe, or no, Reaper, I believe, a Redemptor Dreadnought with Gatling, Stormbolters in the chest, and Flamer on his fist. He also does have the Icarus rocket pods. Standing right next to the captain to lend some support as the bugs close in is a 3-man squad of Blade Guard veterans, a second 5-man squad of intercessors, and then finally a 10-man jump pack assault squad with a flamer and bolt pistol chain swords on all of the other Marines. So that is the intrepid force of the Ultramarines that are going to be trying to survive. The Tyranids generally have the same structure as a battalion, but again, they are unbound. And any unit in the Tyranid forces that is completely destroyed will come back the next Tyranid turn somewhere along the edges of the battlefield. So it is going to actually behoove the Ultramarines to kill down to 1 or 2 wounds or 1 or 2 bugs remaining in a squad, and allow them to hang around on the field weakened. Tyranids just need to kill, Ultramarines just need to survive. So we're going to go set up the forces of the Hive fleet, and Ultramarines are going to have the top of the battle round. So we will come back in Ultramarines turn 1. Here we are at the start of battle round 1 with the Ultramarines. In our command phase, we have spent Wisdom of the Ancient for tactical precision, so everything within 6 inches of our Redemptor is going to be rerolling 1s to wound, while the Chapter Master reroll hits has gone on to the Outrider squad. Just going to take a quick look at all the forces of the Hive fleet as they are arrayed on the table. So we have a Haruspex, a 5-man Zoanthrope squad with Narrow Parasite, and a 3-man Ripper squad in this corner of the battlefield. Then a Turbigon with her 20 Termagants in front of her. She has Synaptic Lure and the Army Relic of Chameleonic Mutation. So -1 to be shot at, and you can't reroll the hit in shooting against her. Then, kind of out on their own, another 3 bases of Rippers. 3 Raveners here, near the Warlord Flying Hive Tyrant with Adaptive Biology, the 5-up Feel No Pain, Catalyst, and Onslaught for his Psychic powers. Exocrine in this back corner. Then a 5-man squad of warriors with Lash Whip Bone Swords and 1 heavy Venom Cannon. A Tyrannifex with the Rupture Cannon. And then finally a Neurothrope with the Horror Paroxysm and 20 Hormagaunts in front of them. With that, we are all arrayed out on the table. We are ready to get into turn 1 for the Ultramarines. So we will move what we want to move and get back to you at the start of the Psychic phase. Most of the Ultramarines have stayed put where they are to gain the benefits of the Wisdom of the Ancients and the Chapter Masters rerolling 1s to hit. But we have penned in the Haruspex with the Outrider squad, so probably going to end up using them as a bit of a roadblock to make sure that he cannot get far into the table, basically by another turn of not having to deal with him, while the Jump Pack Assault Squad is moving on up to deal with the Raveners, while the Storm Speeder has moved in to fill in where the Jump Pack Assault Marines were, and is drawing a bead on the Flying Hive Tyrant. Other than that, everybody stood still, so we are going to go on to the Psychic phase with our Primaris Chief Librarian. So we're going to start off with a Psychic Fortress, casting on a 6. And on an 8, we will definitely get that. Plenty of denies from the 4 corners, so we'll say that it's the Zoanthropes trying to deny, needing a 9, getting it on a 7, and I don't believe their benefit to cast with the number of bugs in the squad applies to deny as well. So Psychic Fortress is on as well. And then we will go with a Smite into probably, let's see, probably it's going to be the Haruspex is the closest, but we can measure. On a 5 and on a 10. Next up, we'll try to deny that with the Winged Hive Tyrant, needing an 11. On a 4, will not be a deny. That's going to be 1 mortal wound going out with Smite. And with that, that will be the Psychic phase, and we will come back at the start of shooting. We're going to start with some shots from the Assault Squad into the Raveners. So all of their weapons are going to go in. So we're going to start with D6 shots from the Flamer, 2 Flamer shots, and then 9 Bolt Pistol shots. So we got 3, 6, 9 Bolt Pistol shots. So the pistols will need to hit on 3s. pretty good spread of hits there. And then all of these are strength 4, no AP. So that will be a total of 4 at no AP. For, I believe, 3 wounds taken off of the Raveners and the start of shooting. Now, the squad of intercessors is going to fire their bolt rifles into the Raveners. Rapid firing, rolling our 1s for the Chapter Master. And then strength 4 on 3s, rerolling 1s to wound from Wisdom of the Ancients. For a total of 3, 6, 8, going through at AP -1. So that's going to take 2 bases of the Rippers off of the board. So kind of exactly what the Ultramarines want to do. Kill down to 1 or kill down to not enough to really be a threat in melee or shooting. Next up, we're going to do the Storm Speeder into the Winged Hive Tyrant. The grenade launchers are just barely out of range of the Winged Hive Tyrant, so red dice are going to be the missile launchers, and the blue dice is going to be the Melter Destroyers. On 3s, not gaining any benefits to reroll 1s from the Captain or Wisdom of the Ancient. So it will be Strength 8 on both of these into Toughness 7. So 3s. Getting pretty good results there. AP -3 and AP -4 go to -4 and -5 respectively from Devastator Doctrine. So all of these are going to be on the 4-up invuln save of the Hive Tyrant. Alright, does very well though. So that's going to be 1 of the Hammer Strike missiles going through, and those are 3 damage. 5-up ignore from his Warlord trait. He will ignore 1 and take 2 damage, going down to 10. Next up, we're going to continue trying to take out the big bugs. We're going to go with everything from the Gladiator Valiant into the Flying Hive Tyrant. So red dice are going to be the Multi-Melta. Or actually, we need 2 more dice for the Multi-Meltas. So I'm going to have these green dice then be the Multi-Meltas, and the blue dice be the Twin Lascalon. On 3s. And then both wounding on 3s. Full round of hits. There we go. 4-up invuln on all of these for the Winged Hive Tyrant. So that's going to be 3 of the las shots going through. This will be 3d6 damage. And we actually want to get in that sweet spot of bringing him down to his lowest bracket, but not killing. So a total of 10, 11 damage will be good for the Ultramarines. So we have 5, 10, 11, 5-ups. So we're actually hoping that the Winged Hive Tyrant survives, but only on 1 or 2 wounds here. Alright, so saved. Ooh, pretty good. So saved 5 of them, so he will take 6 damage, going down to 4 wounds. Not bringing him to his lowest bracket, but going down to his middle bracket will do some pretty good damage there. So we will move on. Next up will be the Redemptor Dreadnought, and everything from the Redemptor is going to be firing into the Hormigaunt squad. So that'll be the Gatling the Stormbolters. The Flamer will not be in range. And now that I say that, the Icarus pod, which he does have, even though I couldn't find the bit for it, will actually go into the Winged Hive Tyrant. Maybe we'll be able to take him down to his last bracket. So we'll do all the anti-infantry into the Hormagaunts, and the rocket pod into the Winged Hive Tyrant. From the shots from the Redemptor, 9 of the Hormagaunts were taken off of the board. Not going to be an issue for morale, though. And no wounds done to the Flying Hive Tyrant. Next up, we're going to go into some of our more central units. We're going to start off with these Infiltrators. They are going to fire everything that they've got into the Zoanthropes to try to bring down a bit of the psychic might. So it's going to be 10 shots from the Infiltrators hitting on 3s. Rerolling our 1s from being near our Chapter Master. That 6 will automatically wound. And then it'll be 6 wounding on 5s, rerolling 1s. Rerolling 1s. For a total of 2 against the Zoanthropes save of 5 up at least, so that will be no damage taken by the Zoanthropes, unfortunately. And at this point, let's see, the Intercessors over here are going to try to do the same thing going into the Zoanthropes. So we will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. Rapid firing since we didn't move. Re-rolling our 1. Unfortunately, those 6s don't do anything for us here. Again, 5s. Re-rolling our 1. And then that's going to be 4 at 18 minus 1. So this is going to be up against their 4 Invulns. So 2 will go through at 1 damage a time, starting to chip away and the brain bugs. Next up, we're going to do the Devastators. The 4 missile launchers are going to go into the Tyrannifex, trying to save the skin or save the ceramite of the vehicles in the army, while the bolt guns are going to try to do some chip damage to the Raveners. So we'll do 4 missile shots. The red die is the one that is on Ballistic Skill 2 up from the Signum. And re-rolling 1s from being in range of the Chapter Master. That's going to be all of our hits. And of course, these are crack grenades, so this is going to be on strength 8. And that will be at least 3, and I will check the toughness of the Tyrannifex to see if that is 3 or 4 wounds. So it's going to be 3 wounds from the missile launchers onto the Tyrannifex at AP minus 3 from Devastator Doctrine. So these are going to go up to 5 up saves. Fail all 3, so that's going to be 3d6 damage from the Devastators. That's going to be a total of 8, 10. I think at this point we are just about through with shooting, so we'll see if we can hope to do some more damage, but not kill it. Alright, so 1 more wound, so that's going to be 11 wounds done to the Tyrannifex. And then we'll do the bolt guns into the Raveners next. We took 1.5 bases off of the board with the Devastator bolt guns. And I believe finally for the shooting phase, we're going to go into the Whirlwind. It's going to fire its Stormbolter into these Termagants, while the Whirlwind launcher is going to go into the Haruspex. We're also going to spend 1 command point, bringing us down to 9 for suppression fire, mostly to make sure that the Haruspex might get a little bit more damage, but mainly so that he fights last, so that both the Outriders can hit first and potentially survive the combat with him. So we'll do the Storm Bolter and then the Whirlwind Missile Launcher and come back to you with damage. We took one of the Termagants off with the Storm Bolter and it got 6 shots from the Whirlwind Launcher. So we're going to be hitting on 3s. And then wounding on 5s for a total of 1 wound into the Haruspex at AP -2 from being in Devastator. But that is going to be a save for the Haruspex. So no damage done, but we did get hits. Yes, and just checking the suppression fire stratagem, it cares about hits, not wounds. So that will make it so the Haruspex has fight last. And then with that, that'll be it for the shooting phase. And now we will go into chargers. The assault squad is going to charge into the Raveners. No shots from the Raveners. So we're going to get a charge of 9 inches. That will be more than enough to get us in. And after thinking a bit, I am not going to charge with the Outriders, as they are already blocking the Haruspex in pretty well. So even though they will probably get some damage in the Psychic phase, we'll try to rely on the Might of the Primaris Librarian to make sure that they do not get smited off of the board. So we'll move the Assault Marines in and then get going in close combat. Calculating all the attacks from the Assault Marines, we have this many. So the black dice are going to be the chainswords, and the blue dice are going to be the regular attacks from the Marine with the Flamer. So we're going to be hitting on 3s, and then wounding on 5s, going into strength 5 bodies. So definitely trying to take quantity over quality. So wounding on 5s. And then that's going to be 1, 2. Oh my goodness. Wow. That is 2 at -1 AP. So they have a 5-up save against my AP -1. So that will do 1 damage. So I'll take one of the Raveners out, but that is not a lot of damage done by the Assault Marines. So we will go to the strike backs from the Raveners. With 2 Raveners that are still here, we're going to have a total of 12 attacks using the Scything Talons. And because they are not equipped with any ranged weaponry, they're Vicious Devourers. Last time their reroll hits 1. So that'll be on 3s. And then Strength 5, Toughness 4, 3s. AP -1 goes to AP -none with Armor of Contempt. So 3 ups. That's going to be a total of 2 wounds. That'll be 1 of the Marines taken down. So pretty slog, or looks like it's going to be a slog in melee here. And with that, that'll bring us to the end of the turn. No points to be scored, because the point is to survive. At this point, I do not believe that there is anybody who can fail morale. The Raveners are in range of the Hive Tyrant. Ooh, no, this one base of Rippers might be able to fail morale. I'll roll just to see. So he is Leadership 4. He lost 2 of his friends. So he definitely will run if he is out of the Fearless bubble for morale from the Turbigon. The Ripper from the Swarm did run away, so these 3 Rippers are going to come back. And then we've got a couple of dead from a few different squads for the Tyranids, but only 1 Ripper squad coming back from the kills of the Ultramarines as we go into Tyranids turn 1. Here we are in turn 1 for the Tyranids. In the command phase, the Winged Hive Tyrant has given his reroll hits of 1 to the Encircled, while the Turbigon has spawned this new squad of Gaunts, and the Neurothrope gave himself 3d6, dropped the lowest for Psychic. And can't recall if I mentioned it in the army overview, the adaptive trait for Hive Fleet Kraken today is going to be add 1 to charge rolls. So we will be benefiting in the charge phase. The squad of 3 Rippers that was killed have respawned and shown back up on this side of the battlefield. And with that, we're going to go through the movement phase and come back to you at the start of Psychic. Here we are after everybody has moved on out from the Tyranids. So we have the Hormagaunts and Neurothrope advancing up here. The Warriors have also advanced to close the gap, while the Winged Hive Tyrant is right danger close to the front lines. The Haruspex has been penned in, but will hopefully be able to take a bit of damage from the Outriders, while the Psychic Might of the Hive Mind has moved up on here. This squad of now 19 Termagants has simply moved forward their 6, while the newly spawned have advanced up. The Raveners are staying in close combat. Exocrine stayed still, as well as the Tyrannifex, to make sure that their heavy guns get the best abilities that they can. And with that, we're ready to go on to the Psychic phase. Not going to mess around. We're going to start off with a superpowered smite from the Zonethropes right here. This will be 2d6 plus 3 for a total of a 4, 6, 7. And with that, I don't know what I'm considering. There are no CP to be spent for the Hive Mind. So now the Librarian just needs to beat a 7. And with an 11, he does. So that has shut off Smite from the Zonethropes. And with this, the Neurothrope is going to go up next. He has the Horror and Paroxysm, but we're just going to start with a Smite. This will be 3d6, drop the lowest for a 6 on Smite. Then, or we'll drop one of them, so that's going to be an 8 to beat. Primaris Librarian will also try to deny this with a 6. That's unfortunately not going to do it. That's going to be D3 mortal wounds. That's going to be 3 mortal wounds to the Gladiator. As we move on to our next Psyker, we're going to continue on with the Neurothrope. We're going to go off with Paroxysm next. And on an 11, that will definitely make it. And I believe that the Primaris Librarian with Chief Librarian gets one more deny. And on a double 12, or on a double 6, we will have to check. So unfortunately, not. The Chief Librarian brings him up to 2 denies. He's already used his 2, so Paroxysm's going to go off onto the Redemptor. So no Overwatch and -1 to hit in melee for the Redemptor. And now we're going to go on to the Winged Hive Tyrant next for Psychic. And with that, we are going to go with Onslaught first, needing a 6. Getting it with a 6. So that is going to be Advance and Charge, and no penalty for assault weapons to the... We're going to give that to the Hormagaunts, while Catalyst is going to try to go off on a 6. On a 4, does not make it. Then finally in the Psychic phase, we are going to go on to the 1 power from the Turrigon, and she's going to try Synaptic Lure on a 9, get it. And that will be going on to somebody within 12 or 18. So we will measure up and see who she wants to lure. We ended up putting the lure onto this 5-man Intercessor squad. That's going to take us through the rest of the Psychic phase. And now we're going to move on to shooting. And the 19 Termagants in this squad are going to open fire, and they are going to take all of their might out against the Devastators, trying to pick off the anti-vehicle or anti-monster fire from the Space Marines. So 19 Devourer shots into the Devastators. Between the +1 to hit and the cover, we have 6 wounds onto the Devastators at a total of a 2-up armor save. So 6 2-ups. And that is gonna do it. And then with the cover, that saved a whole Devastator right there. So we will rinse and repeat. The Turrigon is going to fire what she's got into the Devastators here as well. 4 more saves from the Stinger Salvos into the Devastators at 2-ups. And that would make it even if it was a P5 or 6 from the Invuln save. So that'll be it from this little flank here. Next up, we're just going to do the 1 attack from the Haruspex real quick. So he'll do his tongue into the Bikers. So 1 hit. And on a 4, I believe that will wound. I'll double check the profile on the Grasping Tongue for the Haruspex. So that'll be 1 at a total of AP -2. So going up to a 5. Makes it on a 6. And then we will continue on through for shooting. And we're going to go up to the Tyrannifex next. He is going to fire his Rupture Cannon right on through and into the Gladiator. With the Rupture Cannon, it's going to be 3 shots on 4s from being bracketed. And a full spread of hits. His strength 14. So 2 at AP -4. Going to AP -3. And let's see. Checker unit. So that will be on a 5-up Invuln thanks to Psychic Fortress. Doesn't make either of those. We'll spend a CP for a reroll here for the Ultramarines. Does not make it. That is going to be 2d6 plus 8 damage. So that is going to be a total of 13 damage done to the Gladiator, plus the 3 Immortals it's taken already in the phase, or in the turn rather, will take that out. So, on a 6, does it explode? He does not explode, but that is some heavy firepower for the Marines off the board. We did the Venom Cannon from the Warriors off camera. Got 2 shots, but both of them missed as we advanced. So next up, we're going to do the Encircled, firing all of its shots into the Storm Speeder over here. That's going to be D3 plus 6 shots for a total of 9 on 3s, rerolling 1s from the ability of the Hive Tyrant. So only getting 1/1 to reroll. Does get me a hit though. That's going to be a total of 6 hits. Strength 8, toughness 6, so 3s to wound. It's going to be 5 wounds going through at AP -4, goes to AP -3. Will be a 5-up save thanks to Psychic Fortress. Ooh, and Psychic Fortress comes in big there. 2 go through at 3 damage a time for 6 damage onto the Storm Speeder, bringing it down to 4. Then that's the Encircled. Raveners don't have anything to shoot. So I believe the last piece of shooting will be 10 shots from the Raveners, not Raveners, the Termagants right here. And we're just going to take some pot shots into these intercessors in the building. In the charge phase, we will start with what is obvious, the Haruspecs into the Bikers. On a 10, he will get in there handily. Then we are going to start with, or go up next with these 2 Raveners. We're going to go into that squad of intercessors. On a 6/7, should be enough to make it in. Now, the other squad of Raveners are going to go in and try to take out the Infiltrators. On a 2/5, I do not believe will be enough, but I will double check. So 5, definitely not enough there. So, oh well. Now, the Hormagaunts, who did get Onslaught, they're going to try the same thing, going into the Infiltrators. On a total of a 9, should be enough to get them in. Yes, and a 9, the Hormagaunts will go in. And finally, for chargers, we will have the Hive Tyrant charge into the Storm Speeder. And here's where we're going to not only spend 1 to Overwatch, we're going to spend another 2 for a total of 3 for the Ultramarines group Overwatch. So we will have the Storm Speeder, these intercessors, the Blade Guard, and the Whirlwind, all firing Overwatch into the Hive Tyrant. However, through all of that Overwatch, the Hive Tyrant remains the same. So he is going to charge in with a total of a 10 into the Storm Speeder. So he will move himself like so. And then we will go on into the fight phase, starting with the Tyranids. We're going to start with the Hormagaunts into the Infiltrators with a total of 27 attacks going into them. And after we hit and wound with the Hormagaunts, 5 3-up saves for a total of 2 wounds taken. So that will be 1 of the Infiltrators removed. And then I don't think the Ultramarines have any need to interrupt. So we will continue on with the Tyranids, and we will go to the Ripper Swarms next into these intercessors. Unsurprisingly, the 2 Ripper Swarms were not able to do anything against the intercessors. So next up in the Tyranid fights, we're going to go into the Winged Hive Tyrant, into the Storm Speeder, to see if the Tyranids can remove another vehicle, or if enough damage has been done to the Hive Tyrant to make him ineffective even against a somewhat easier to kill vehicle. Starting off with the Bone Sword, we have 5 attacks hitting on 3s because we are in our middle bracket. Re-rolling 1s from having the Lash Whip. That's going to be a full round of hits. And then that's going to be a total of Strength 11 from Adrenal Gland and the +3 for the Bone Sword. So on 3s to wound, that's going to be a full 5 wounds. At AP -4, going to AP -3. This is going to be on the 5-up save from Psychic Fortress. Makes 2, but 3 go through. They are 3 damage a time, so that is going to be more than enough to take out the Storm Speeder. Does it blow? It does not. That is the Hive Tyrant successful in melee, and a key target right in the back lines, or in the front lines of the Ultramarines. Now, with all of the Tyranid chargers done, we are going to go on to the ongoing combat here between the Assault Squad and the Raveners, while the Bikers will swing out next against the Haruspecs. So we should, I believe I should probably do the Bikers next in the order, but with Fight Last on the Haruspecs, not particularly any issue of ordering here. So we'll just do the Assault Squad into the Raveners with all of their attacks. The Assault Squad has fought back and taken one of the Raveners down to 1 wound. Now we're going to go on to the Outriders into the Haruspecs, hitting on 3s with their 19 attacks. And then wounding on 6s for a total of 1 at -1 AP. Makes it. So unfortunately, it looks like the Outriders are going to be the sacrificial lamb to keep the Haruspecs busy. Next, we'll do the Raveners back into the Assault Marines, then see if the Outriders can survive the clapback from the Haruspecs. The Raveners attacked back and did a total of 1 damage to one of the Assault Marines. Now we're going to go on to the Haruspecs, and I'm going to do the Shoveling Claws attacks from the Haruspecs. So 5 attacks on 3s, getting a total of 4 hits. Then Strength 14, wounding on 2s. That's going to be 4 at -3. It goes to -2 from Armor of Contempt. So 5 ups. That's going to be 3 going through, and that is D3 plus 3 a time. And that is going to be a minimum of 4 damage, and that will be the squad of Outriders wiped from the Haruspecs. So, not sure if that was the right move, but they did slow down the Haruspecs a little bit. I don't think it was enough for it to make much of a difference. And with that, we will go on through. Nobody in the Ultramarines or Tyranids has to take morale, so we're going to go right on to Battle Round 2 with the Ultramarines. Through the command phase and movement phase, we have gone. The Primaris Apothecary used Combat Revival to take 1 Intercessor back up into the fight, while the the Infiltrators fell back away from the Hormagaunts. The Intercessors over here did also fall back, while the Blade Guard and Captain are moving up to engage the Hive Tyrant in melee. The Chapter Master gave the Redemptor full rerolls to hit, while the Redemptor is giving everyone within 6 of him reroll 1s to wound. And then with that, most of our assets have stayed still in the middle, trying to brace for impact. At the start of the Psychic phase, we're going to go with the Psychic Fortress from the Primaris Librarian again. So we're going to go on a 6 for Fortress, getting it with a 6, and then trying to deny with the Hive Tyrant. With the 7, that is denied. So at this point, we are going to go with Null Zone instead. Try to deny Feel No Pain, or not Feel No Pains, deny Invulns if we can't have our own. And with a 5, that's not going to do it. I'll spend a CP for Ultramarines to reroll that. And on a 5, will not do it, unfortunately. So, not a productive Psychic phase, but now we're going to go on to the shooting phase. We're going to start with the Devastators. Their bolt guns are going to go into the Ripper Swarms, while the 4 missile launchers are all going to go on into the Haruspecs. So red die is hitting on 2s, rest are hitting on 3s, and goodness, thankfully we are in range of the Chapter Master still. So that goes from 1 hit to 4 hits. And then wounding on 4s, rerolling our 1s. So no 1s to reroll, unfortunately, but that is 2 wounds. And on a 2, we will fail, and on a 5, I believe, will be a pass. That'll be d6 damage going into the Haruspecs. 6 damage, taking him down to 9, I believe. Actually, we'll just count up for right now. So he's taken 6 damage, and we'll use the Cherub this time to fire one of the missile launchers again. Of course, the one that's hitting on a 2, re-rolling, then on a 4 to wound, makes it. Then the save for the Haruspecs will be another 5. So that is the Cherub used, but at least 6 more wounds taken off of the Haruspecs. Now the Intercessors who fell back are going to be rapid firing their bolt rifles into the Haruspecs, trying to make it so that he is at least bracketed towards the middle. So that is going to be a total of 10 shots into him. On 4, since we fell back, re-rolling our 1s. And then strength 4 on 6s, re-rolling 1s. I see 2 6s, so 2 6s at AP -1. 2 3-up saves for the Haruspecs. Make 1, fail 1, bring him down to 8 wounds remaining. So 1 more wound taken from him will bracket him. Also, the bolt guns from the Devastators took 1 base down and another down to 2 wounds left. Now, next up, we are going to do the Infiltrators, rapid firing into the Hormagaunts. 6 of the Hormagaunts were taken off from the shooting. Now we're going to do the Redemptor, and everything from the Redemptor is going to go ahead and try to start taking out these warriors. As even though they have not made any impact yet, they are definitely within range to start charging in and taking out Marines in turn 2. So we'll go everything into them from the Dreadnought now. Starting with the heavy Onslaught Gatling on 3s, re-rolling everything from the Space Marine, or the Chapter Master rather. Everything's a Space Marine. On 3s to wound. That's going to be a total of 7 wounds at -1. So 5 up saves. Make 1. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 damage taken. Each of them is 2 wounds apiece. So that's going to be 2 of the warriors dead. Next up, we're going to do the Stormbolters for a total of 4s. Rerolling everything. There we go. And then this is Strength 4 on 5s. Rerolling my 1s. That's going to be 1 at -1 AP. Makes it. Now the Icarus Rocket Pod D3 shots. 3 shots. On 3s. And 3s to wound. Rerolling 1s. That's going to be a total of 2 at -1 AP. So 5 ups. Make 1 fail 1. 2 damage a time. Brings another one down to 2 wounds. And then the Flamer is almost definitely not in range. So that'll be 2.5 of the warriors taken down. Not a bad go-around with the Redemptor. Next up will be the second 5-man squad of Intercessors. What they're going to do is they are going to be firing into this squad of now 19 Termagants, as it is getting danger close to the Ultramarine lines, and we might as well try to force the Termagant to regenerate some and hope for a low roll on that. So we'll do our 10 shots into the Termagants. 5 of them were taken out thanks to the Intercessors. Now finally for shooting we will do the Whirlwind. And the Whirlwind's going to rapid fire its Stormbolter into these Termagants, and the Whirlwind launcher is going to go into the Haruspex, trying to make sure that it is removed or bracketed at the very least. 3 Termagants removed with the Stormbolter. Now we're going to do number of shots with the launcher into the Haruspex. That's going to be a total of 5 on 3s. And then Strength 7 into Toughness 8, so 5s. Then re-rolling 1s. That's going to be 2 at -1 AP, so 3 up saves. Will be 1 going through, so that'll take him down to 6 wounds remaining. That will bracket him at the very least. And with that, we are just about done with shooting. We'll do pistols from the characters and pistols from the Assault Marines. Then we will go into charges. Pistol shots actually did the 1 damage it needed to take out one of the Raveners over here. So Assault Marines are looking pretty good, while pistols didn't do anything to the Hive Tyrant. And now we're going to go into chargers. So we're going to do the Blade Guard on an 11 into the Hive Tyrant. And I think what we're going to do is we are actually just going to let the Blade Guard take out the Hive Tyrant and keep the Captain, or Chapter Master rather, alive and protected a little bit longer. So with that, we'll do the Blade Guard into the Hive Tyrant, and then it'll be ongoing combats with the 1 Ravener into Assault Marines. Now the Blade Guard into the Hive Tyrant on 3s. Re-rolling 1s from the Captain nearby. That's going to be only 3 misses. Then on 5s to wound. Re-rolling any ones. Oop, no ones, but a good spread of hits. So that's going to be a total of 5 on the 4-up invuln. So 3 go through. 2 damage a time will be 6. 5 ups. So we need to make a couple of these for the Hive Tyrant to stay alive. And we only make 1. So that's 5 damage going through. That will be the Hive Tyrant removed. Does he explode or lash out in death? He does not. So that is 1 monster removed for right now for the Tyranids. Getting a little bit of breathing room, but we are definitely still surrounded on all sides for the Marines. Next up, we'll do this ongoing combat, and then take it to turn 2 with the Tyranids. Tyranids turn 2, and we now have a fresh winged Hive Tyrant coming up on this flank from the Endless Swarm. So what I'm going to do, he's going to have the exact same loadout, but as this is going to be a different winged Hive Tyrant, he will not have the 5-up Feel No Pain Warlord trait, but just to keep it simple, he'll also have Onslaught, Catalyst, Lash, Bone Sword, Adrenal Gland, Wings, everything that he had. And the last Ravener fled from combat from the Assault Marines. So that means the 3 Raveners have come back up on this side of the battlefield while we are still surrounding the Marines. So in the command phase, what we're going to do is the Turbigon is going to spawn a total of 6 more Gaunts into this squad. She'll give them +1 to hit. The Neurothroat will give itself 3d6 for Psychic. And then we'll say that since this Hive Tyrant just came onto the battlefield, it will not be able to do its command ability, so no reroll 1s to hit for either of the heavy weapon beasts here. But with that, we'll go through the movement phase for Tyranids and on to Psychic. At the start of Psychic, we're going to kick it off with this Hive Tyrant trying to give himself Catalyst. So on a 6, gets it with a 10, and as much as the Primaris Librarian has things to do, he will not try to deny that. So we'll let that one go through. Then we'll just try a smite with the Hive Tyrant as nobody needs Onslaught. On a 5, he'll make it. And now we will try to deny that with the Librarian. Denies it on an 11. So that'll be 1 cast, 1 fail for the Hive Tyrant. Next up, we'll go around to the Neurothrope, and the Neurothrope is going to start off with a smite on 3d6, and he'll make it on an 8. Now the Librarian will try to deny this, will not deny it, so d3 mortals, 1 mortal onto the Redemptor. Next up, we'll do 3d6 on Paroxysm for the Neurothrope again. On a 7, we'll get it, so Paroxysm will go on to the Redemptor again. Then a smite from the Zonethroats, so 2d6 plus 3, for a total of 7, 10. So d3 plus 3 damage. So 4 mortals onto the Intercessors right in front. And then finally in the Psychic phase, the Turbigon will attempt Synaptic Lure. getting it with an 11, so we will put Synaptic Lure onto the Intercessors that just lost 2 of their number. So, with the Might of the Hive Mind expended, let's go on to shooting. We're going to start with the Tyrannifex shooting its Rupture Cannon on over into the Redemptor. Hitting on 4s. Ooh, alright, so a little bit of a whiff there. And then on 2s to wound. Ooh, that'll be a 1 to wound. That is not going to be anything from the Rupture Cannon this turn. So lucky break for the Redemptor. Next up, we're going to do the Exocrine, and its shots are actually going to go into the Assault Marines. This is going to be D3 plus 6, but since there's at least 3 of them, or 6 of them in the squad, excuse me, it's going to be the minimum 3 for blast. So that's going to be 9 shots into the Exocrine, or from the Exocrine, hitting on 3s. 2 misses, and then strength 8. 2s to wound. That's going to be 8 at -4 AP, goes to -3. So 6 up saves. We'll make 1 of them, but that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the squad dead. Trying to kill off the Assault Marines so that they can't mess up the Exocrine or just fly around and be hard to track down. We're going to do this 10-man Gaunt squad. Try to take the last of the wounds off. Ooh, probably not going to do it. With only 3 hits and no wounds. They have whiffed hard in shooting, but they didn't advance, so maybe a long bomb charge could slow the Assault Marines down a little bit. And next up, we're going to continue on with shooting with the Warrior's Venom Cannon. He is going to try and take some wounds off of the Redemptor. The Venom Cannon shot and missed the Redemptor. So now we're going to have to go on to this side of the battlefield. All of the shots from these Termagants, and probably from the Turvagon, are going to go into the Devastators. Try to take off some of the missile shots for the Marines. So we'll do the shots from the Termagants, and I think that should be 17. Into the Devastators, then the Stinger Salvo again into Devastators as well. With that shooting, we were able to take 1 of the bolt gun Devastators off of the squad, and now we are going to go into the charge phase. We're going to start off with this lone Ripper Swarm going into the Intercessors. So we're not going to spend the CP to Overwatch, and that will therefore tie them up. Now we're going to go into the Exocrine, or not Exocrine, the Haruspex is going to charge into the Intercessors as well. So on a 4, I think that should still be able to get it in, or on a 5, even if it didn't, a 9 with the reroll will definitely get him into close combat. And then the Raveners here are going to get a little tricky. They're going to declare a charge into the Intercessors, the Devastators, and the Whirlwind. So at this point, we will Overwatch, and we will spend the 1 for the Team Overwatch. 3 CP was spent to group Overwatch with the Devastators, the Whirlwind, and the Infiltrators. That brought 2 of the 3 Raveners down. The remaining 1 was able to make it into combat with all 3 of the units he declared, however. And at this point, next we are going to start charging with some of the bugs over on this side of the field. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the 3 remaining warriors into the intercessors. On a 7-8, we'll make it in. And then finally, the Winged Hive Tyrant will go for the Redemptor on a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we will measure up whether he gets in with the Redemptor. The Tyrant is not going to make it into melee this turn. He needed an 11 to get into the Redemptor. Then finally, the Hormagaunts just went ahead and charged the Devastators as well. The Ultramarines only have 1 CP left, so they will not be able to interrupt. So we're going to go through all of the fights with the Tyranids, and then come back to you at the end of the fight phase to see how the battlefield has shaken up. Here we are at the end of the fight phase for Tyranids turn 2, and the Haruspex was actually a big whiff. He did not do any damage. The Ravener, or the Ripper Swarm, was taken off by the Intercessors. The remaining Ravener is down to 2 wounds remaining. The Hormagaunts were taken out by the Devastators. 1 of the warriors was killed, while 1 intercessor fell here. 2 more of the Devastators with bolt guns have fallen, so now it is just the core 5. And the Haruspex hasn't taken any wounds. But all in all, not the worst performance that the Ultramarines could have done. However, at this point, it is going to be a full Ripper Swarm and Hormagaunt Swarm coming back in turn 3 for the Tyranids, as they have been fully destroyed. But the Ultramarines are definitely still hanging on. So we're going to go into Battle Round 3 for the Ultramarines. Battle Round 3 starts with the Ultramarines staying in the Tactical Doctrine. A lot of us fell back, including the squad of Intercessors in the building. They've received full rerolls from the Chapter Master and got one of their number revived from the Apothecary. The Redemptor has moved on forward to have a couple of different targets depending on how the rest of shooting goes. Devastators fell back out from combat and will probably be aiming to take out the Haruspex with their missile launchers or continue to wound him. The 3-man Intercessors fell back here, while the Captain and his 3-blade guard are advancing on this front to deal with the Termagants and Turbigon, while finally the last 2 Assault Marines have moved towards the Exocrine to make a nuisance of themselves and to try to make sure that they are at least soaking up some anti-vehicle firepower so that the Redemptor and the Whirlwind can continue to fire unabated. With that, we're going to do a quick Psychic phase. We're going to start with a Smite from the Librarian. On a 3 will not do it. And I am only on 2 CP for the Ultramarine, so we will have to let that go. And then we are also going to go with Psychic Fortress on a 7, makes it. And then let's see if one of the Hive Mind can deny it. They cannot, so Psychic Fortress will be active again for the Ultramarines in round 3. So now we're going to get started on the shooting phase. We're going to start with the Intercessors who received full rerolls. They're going to blast everything that they can into the Warriors. So 10 shots on 3s. Rerolling. Only 1 need to reroll there. There we go. And then we did fall back, so those 3s actually would have been misses. So that would have made 1 of them up. Then Strength 4. So we've got a total of 6 at AP minus 2 for being in the Tactical Doctrine. So 6 ups. make 2, fail 4. So that's going to be 4 damage onto the warriors. That will take another out. Now we're going to do the Infiltrators. The Infiltrators are going to try to be the ones to remove the Ravener off of the table. So we're going to do 10 shots, re-rolling our 1s from the Chapter Master being in range. And then those 6s, so we have 1, 2, 3 that automatically wound. And then on 5s to wound. Ooh, alright, so we have a total of 7 wounds at -1. So 1, 2, 3, 4 go through. So that will take the Ravener off the table to reappear next turn. We're going to try with the Devastators now, going into the Haruspex, so 4 missile launchers on 4s. Alright, and they are a little out of range of the Captain reroll. So, on 4s to wound, 1 at -3, so this will be a, or -2, so this will be a 4-up save. Makes it, unfortunately, for the Space Marines, and then we'll do the bolt gun into, the Termagants. And that's going to be 1 Termagant taken out by the bolt gun of the Sergeant. And next up, we will just do the 3 Intercessors into these Termagants. So we've got a total of 6 shots on 4 since we fell back. And then on 3s to kill. That'll be 1 more taken off of the board. Next up in shooting, mainly just to make sure that they're not a problem, the Redemptor is going to do everything that he's got into these Ripper Swarms right in front. Just try to take them off the board and make them a problem for next turn or the turn after. The Redemptor cleared off the Rippers, no problem, and now we're going to go into our final shooting unit, the Whirlwind, and the Whirlwind is going to declare all of its its Stormbolter is going to go into the Termagants, and then the Whirlwind launcher is going to go into the Haruspex. So we'll do 2d6 shots into the Haruspex first, for a total of 3 shots on 3s and 5s to wound. And that is a 4-up for the Haruspex, so he saves. And then finally the gun into the Gaunts, so that'll be 2 hits, and then 3s to kill. Nothing. So a complete whiff from the Whirlwind is not what we wanted to see from the Ultramarines, and now we'll go into Chargers. We're going to go into the Redemptor to the Haruspex. On a 5 should just do it. The die wants to actually come out. So he is going to be -1 to wound in melee, so that's going to be a bit tough. But we will just have to try and make sure that we can get at least one of these monsters off the table. Then next up, we're going to do the Captain and the Blade Guard into the Termagants. So they are going to be going through the crater. So we might need to use one of our 2 CP to reroll. So we're going to go with the Captain on a 4 going down to a 2. That will be a reroll for an 8, and then the Blade Guard on a 5 should make it in. We're going to start off with the Redemptor into the Haruspex, so there's going to be 4 attacks with the Fist on 3s. That's going to be 2 wounds, and we'll use our last CP for right now to take a reroll for 3 hits. Strength 14 into Toughness 8, usually on 3s. -1 because of paroxysm, so 3s, or 3 on 4s. That'll be 3 wounds at -3 AP, 5 ups. So that'll make 1 fail 2. This is going to be a total of 2d3 plus 6 damage, for a total of 10 damage into the Haruspex. So he will be removed. And he will, however, do some mortals back to the Redemptor as he goes. Here we are after the fights from the Blade Guard and the Captain. There are 3 Gaunts remaining in the squad in front of the Turvagon. So with that and the Haruspex removed, there's a little bit more breathing room on this flank, but not a whole lot as we continue to have waves and waves of Tyranids come in. And at this point, there are going to be 4 units coming in turn 3. The Haruspex, both Ripper Swarms, and the Raveners back to try to get as many of the Ultramarines off as we can as we go into Tyranids turn 3. Turn 3 with the Tyranids, and the Ultramarines are continuing to be surrounded on all sides. One of the Ripper Swarms came back over here, while the Redemptor is being flanked to be smitten by Psychic and trying to take him out with mortal wounds. The Turvagon got 10 back into her squad, which has given her +1 to hit buff again. The Termagants right here, I forgot to move, so I will move them up. They'll probably move on up and try to plink some shots from the Blade Guard, while the Hive Tyrant has moved on forward back into the center, and the Haruspex and other Ripper Swarms are on this flank. Exocrine got reroll hits of 1 from the Winged Hive Tyrant, and is not overly concerned about the Assault Marines right in front of him. Easy charge after he is done shooting, while the Tyrannifex is still on his 6 wounds and eyeing up the Whirlwind. And finally, the Raveners have moved on forward from this board edge. So with that, we're going to go on into the Psychic phase for the Tyranids to see if we can remove some Ultramarines with mortal wounds. To start off the Psychic phase, we're going to get right into it with the Smites from the Neurothrope first into the Redemptor on 3d6. So we're actually going to keep the double 6 to make it so that it is going to be undeniable. This is going to be a d6 mortal wounds. That's going to be 5 mortal wounds to the Redemptor, and d3 to the Neurothrope to bring him down to, I believe, 4. And then we're going to go right on into the, or actually we will do paroxysm on this again. So we'll try another d3 on a 9. We'll let that one go from the Chief Librarian, and we will we'll put it on to the Infiltrators right on over there. Now we're going to go on to the big smite from the Zoanthropes, adding 3 to this. That's going to be 3 plus 6, or plus 3 to 6, so we will try to deny this from the Librarian. And that will make it, because he has his Hellfire Hood, so adding 1 to deny within 12 inches. That'll be a smite denied. And then I believe at 5-man they are allowed to cast another power, so I will check that, and I'll also bring the Neurothrope down to his proper wounds. No, unfortunately, the Neurothropes will not get another power Now we're going to go on to the Turbogon, and she's just going to attempt to manifest a smite of her own. So this will go off on a 5, 6, 7, getting it on an 8. So that'll be D3 wounds. That'll be 1 mortal wound to the closest, which will be one of the Blade Guard by the looks of it. And then finally for Psychers, we have the Winged Hive Tyrant, who's going to attempt to give himself Catalyst. Gets it on a 7. And then nobody needs Onslaught, so we will just finish off with a Smite, needing an 8. And on a 4, not gonna make it for that, but we will now go on to shooting. We're going to start off the shooting phase with the Exocrine. His bioplasmic cannon's going to go all the way down to the Redemptor. So D3 plus 6 shots. So 2 plus 6 is 8. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8 shots. On 3s, rerolling 1s. No 1s to reroll. Then Strength 8, Toughness 8 on 4s. We have 2 at -4, goes to -3, so 6 up saves. Ooh, makes 1, fails 1. And that's going to be 3 damage down to 2 from the armor of the Knight, or not the Knight, the Redemptor. So 2 wounds taken down from the Redemptor. Now we'll do the next heavy weapon of the Tyrannifex into the Whirlwind. So 3 shots on 4s. Oof. That's going to be only 1, but wounding on a 2 makes it. And then we do have Psychic Fortress up, so a 5 up invuln. Not going to do it. So that's going to be D6 plus 4 damage to the Whirlwind, for a total of 10 damage going right on through to the vehicle. From the 10 damage of the Tyrannifex, the Whirlwind only has 1 wound remaining. So I, off camera, did these Termagants, and they were actually able to take off the last 2 wounds of one of the Blade Guard, so bringing them down to 2. And finally, we do have the Venom Cannon from this warrior. He'll try to take out the Whirlwind, so D3 shots. That's pretty cocked. That's going to be a total of 3 shots on 4s. And then 3s to wound. Will be 1 going through. And on a 5, that will save for the Whirlwind, and then that is most of the shots over here fired. So with the rest of our shots, we just have the Turbogon and the Termagants. So with all of their shots, the Turbogon's actually going to go and try to take out the last wound remaining on the Whirlwind, while all of the Gaunts are going to go into this 3-man Intercessor squad. And where the Whirlwind once was, now lays a smoking crater. The Whirlwind also exploded, and between the explosion, we're down to 1 Blade Guard, 4 wounds left on the Captain. This Intercessor squad was completely wiped out between the explosion and the Gaunts shooting. 1 wound taken on the Devastators. Librarians down to 3. Apothecaries down to 4. 1 of these Infiltrators died, and another of the Intercessors died for the rest of shooting. With that, we're going to go on to the charge phase, and we're also going to start off with the Turbogon. Turbogon's going to go into the Captain, or to the Chapter Master on a 5. She will have to kind of bump into the crater, but she will be all set there. The Turbogun also took a wound that I need to mark up. And now the Hive Tyrant is going to charge in and go to the... Yeah, he's going to go into the Intercessors on a 6. Makes it with ease. And then just for distance, the Warrior will also go into them. On a 5, will make it in. And then I believe that is everything that wants to charge for the Nids. So we'll go into combat. Or actually, no, it is the Encircled will also charge into those Assault Marines at the back. 5 inches, mainly just to make sure that they cannot continue to bother him with their presence. We're going to start with the Turbogun into the Chapter Master, using the sweeps for her Scything Talons on 3s, and then Strength 7 into Toughness 4, wounding on 3s. That's going to be a total of 5 at a 4-up invuln, or 4-up invuln for a Captain, and makes 4 of them. So 1 goes through at 2 damage. So that will allow the Captain to live. And next up, we will go into the Swarmlord, or not Swarmlord, the Hive Tyrant, going into the Intercessor. So, unsurprisingly, the Intercessors and the Assault Marines have been removed, but the Captain is still standing, so he's going to do 7 attacks into the Turbogun on 2s, and then with the Burning Blade and Imperial Sword, it's going to be Strength 8 into Toughness 8, so wounding on 4s. And then each of these is going to be at an AP of -5 for being the Burning Blade. So each of these is going to go through for 2 damage each. That's going to be 6 more wounds taken off of the Turbogun as we go through round 3 and enter into turn 4 with the Ultramarines, having a footprint of this on the board. So still a decent chunk left, but definitely not as much as the Marines would have liked to still be on the table. Turn 4 with the Ultramarines, and here's how we're looking. The Premier Psyker has moved on forwards to perhaps take on the Hive Tyrant in melee if needed, or to buff up the Captain as needed. The Redemptor has moved backwards to make sure that if and when he dies, he does not explode and kill any of the Ultramarines. The Captain went ahead and put full rerolls onto the Devastators, while one of the Infiltrators has been brought back for the Apothecary. Now we're going to do the, not Chaplain, the Librarian. He's going to start off with Null Zone to try to deny some of the benefits to the Tyranids, and with a 5, that's not going to do it. So we're not going to spend ACP there. Now we'll just do Might of Heroes on a 10 down to a 9 for Shadows in the Warp. So we'll try to deny with the Swarmlord, not Swarmlord, and denies it on a 10. So no Psychic has been successful from the Librarian. Now we're going to go on to shooting with the rest of the Ultramarines. The Devastators are going to go everything other than the bolt gun into these Hive Tyrant, and the bolt gun's just going to try to pick off some of the Termagants. So 4 of the Marines are going to fire in with their missile launchers. Then the green one will be the one hitting on 2s, but all of those will be successful hits. And 3s to wound. That'll be 2 successful wounds. And this is where we're going to spend our CP. This is our last heavy firepower. So we've got 3 4-up in vuln saves for the Hive Tyrant. Not going to make it there. 2d6 damage going into him for a total of 7 wounds. And then on 5-up for Catalyst, ignoring one of them, so he will take 6 wounds from the missile launchers. Now that the Hive Tyrant is on half wounds, we're going to go on over to the Redemptor, and the Redemptor is going to fire off everything into the Termagants, trying to make it so that we cannot tie up the Marines in melee as easily, and take away some of the screening for the Termagant if that comes up in our last turn. So we'll do everything from the Redemptor into the Termagants, and then come back with the next unit. Next up, we're going to do everything from the Infiltrators into the lone warrior left in the squad. So we're going to have 10 on 3s, then the 6 will automatically wound. Then we're going to have a total of 4 at no AP, so 4-ups. And that will be enough to take the last warrior off of the table. So 1 less squad to worry about. But with that, that's just about everything for shooting. So we'll do miscellaneous pistols and then charge into melee with the Ultramarines. In chargers, the Infiltrators, Apothecary, and Librarian have all charged into the Hive Tyrant, while the 1 Blade Guard veteran is into the Termagant to assist the Chapter Master. And at this point, we will do all of the attacks from the chargers into the Tyranids first, and then come back to you at the end of the fight phase to see what's left. At the end of Battle Round, or at the end of Ultramarines, turn 4, here's how we're looking. The Hive Tyrant has not taken any damage and took out the Apothecary and 1 of the Infiltrators. The Termagant sustained no damage and has taken out the Captain, while the rest of the swarm continues to press in and tighten the noose around the neck of the Ultramarines. So now we go into Tyranids, turn 4. And here we are at the end of movement phase for Tyranids in turn 4. So the Hormagaunts have moved on up and they are back on the board. The Redemptor is being lined up by the Zoanthropes and the Tyrannifex, while the Neurothrope has moved on up to take care of the Devastators. Haruspecs and some Termagants and Raveners are surrounding on the other sides. So we'll go through the Psychic phase, starting with Neurothropes or Zoanthropes into the Redemptor. So on an 8-11, we will try to deny this with the Primaris Librarian. We will not. So that's going to be D3 plus 3 mortals. 6 mortals will take the Redemptor off the table. And he does not blow up. The Neurothrope is going to smite into the Devastators on 3d6. We'll keep that, and that'll be a... the Neurothrope can reroll 1s. So that'll go up to an 8. We'll try to deny as well with the Primaris Librarian. It will not. So another 2 mortal wounds. So takes the Sergeant, takes another wound off of them. Then the Hive Tyrant will Catalyst himself, makes it, and then Smite needing a 7, not making it. Then the Termagant's going to Smite needing an 8, getting it for D3. 1 mortal wound onto the Blade Guard in combat with her. Then we're going to go on to the shooting phase for just about anything. The only thing that's in range and can shoot is going to be, we're going to do all of the Termagant shots into the Devastator, and the Tyrannifex and the Exocrine are also going to go into the Devastators, as they're the only ones not currently in combat. And with the combined firepower, the Devastators were removed. Now into charges, the Raveners are going to go into the Infiltrators on a 10. The Haruspex is going to go into the Librarian on a 7. 8 should be enough even gutting into the Crater. And then the Turbogon will probably be able to keep the Blade Guard in melee. So we will go through the fights and see if there is anything blue left on the table. And with many a wrenching and a crunching and a tearing of armor, skin, and bone, the Ultramarines have fallen to the endless wave of the Tyranids. So that is a victory for the Hive fleet, although I will say they were able to hold out until the bottom of turn 4. So that is very, very impressive. Also impressive that a couple of the Tyranids never actually died, like I was expecting the Tyrannifex to have to respawn at least once. The Zoanthropes did very, very well, being an obnoxious unit that were just so hard to kill that I never really saw a chance to do that with the Ultramarines. And then just the respawning waves and waves of little Griblies with the petty little shots and attacks eventually tearing away at the Ultramarines. So, hope everybody enjoyed this narrative battle report. If you did, make sure to hit like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure that you guys are sharing the love of the hobby however you can. And I will see all of you folks on the next battlefield of the 41st Millennium.